And welcome into Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. This is a special brew as we get to welcome in a guest in just a moment from the Boston Bruins organization. As always, folks, Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor is proudly presented by our lead in-pod sponsor, Fazenda Coffee. Go to fazendacoffe.com/morning brew to check out the Morning Brew blend. I got a new bag of it, Razor. It has been fantastic, and they were able to grind it for me too, so perfect stuff. Also, check out the Morning Brew hats, the Clean Canteen, or just go to fazendacoffe.com and check out all of their other coffees that they offer, fazendacoffe.com. Also, this Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor is presented by Graciano Construction. Check out GracianoConstruction.com or call 508-330-7589. RTN Realty. If you're looking to buy, sell, or lease a new place in Mass, Rhode Island, or New Hampshire, check out rtnrealty.com for all of your real estate needs. Reach out to Chris Gentile at 617-835-0845. Also, Sparks Hockey and the finest at-home skate sharpener that you can buy, sparkshockey.com. And finally, Apex Entertainment. Check out apexentertainment.com. 100,000 square feet of pure fun. Apex Entertainment. Razor, this guy that we're about to talk with is somebody you've known for an awful long time and you have a great relationship with. Oftentimes assistant coaches don't get given the opportunity to sit and talk to media, just the way it works or doesn't work at times. But the Boston Bruins are very happy to have us talk with Bob Essensa, Goalie Bob, who has been there since the 2003 season and was your first professional goalie coach. So what does it mean to you to have Goalie Bob on?
Well, it's funny to me, just because of the history, like you said. Never would have thought the two of us would still be sitting here 21 years later shooting it. So it's great that he's coming on. I know he'll be very insightful. He's a hockey guy through and through. He's been in the league now for probably almost 40 years, 35 years anyways. So he's seen it all, and he's extremely bright, intelligent, smart, funny. So I'm sure we'll have a great convo, but for me, it's just he'll make me laugh just being with his dry humor. He's just a funny dude.
Well, let's make you laugh then. Let's not wait any longer. Welcome into this special Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor with Goalie Bob. Well, every once in a while here on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, we like to have a guest in. We like to talk to somebody that, it's usually a current Boston Bruin, but in this case, we're bringing in the big dog on this one. We haven't had a chance to sit down with this guy yet, and this guy doesn't always get the opportunity to come sit and talk to one of his former students like this. I know he gets to talk a lot. It's Bob Essensa, a.k.a. Goalie Bob. Everybody knows you as Goalie Bob. We get a chance to sit down with a guy who's been with the Boston Bruins organization, folks, since 2013. I honestly don't know. The only time I've ever seen Razor smile this much, Bob, is when there's only one other time, and it's true, and this is no BS, is when he gets Chipotle and he eats it like a golden retriever does. I mean, he just devours it. He just goes. That's what he's about. He is so excited for this one, as am I. Great to have you on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great. I've actually seen Razor more excited than perhaps you're just describing there, to be honest. It's usually after one of my B goalie drills or a C goalie drills thrown his way. But, I do have to correct you though, Billy. I've been here since 2003. You're going easy on me. I've been here a little longer than what you.
I didn't say. Did I not say 2003?
You said 13. You said 13.
No,
Bob wishes.
I would have missed out on Razor entirely there.
I know. No.
You wishes he could have jumped in and missed those other years. Those guys.
Welcome to the storm that is Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. As I am not a real host and I screw things up regularly, so I obviously got. I don't know why I took a decade away. I knew you were there since 2003. And anyway, listen, it's great to have you here. Let's get into it and let's talk about the longevity, because that's just something that is just amazing that you've lasted this long. And because this is a business that you're hired to get fired in. It really is. I mean, that's the way that it works. And in particular, specialty like yourself. So how the hell have you done it since 2003?
Well, I always joke around that the key to my success has been just turning your phone off every summer and showing back up at training camp and acting like you belong. But I've been fortunate. How do you have longevity in this league? Hopefully you're good to the guys you work with. Hopefully you have some success individually and team wise. But the biggest thing for me is that I love what I do, and I think hopefully that shows in the locker room and hopefully, I'm not sure Razor can attest to this, but hopefully it translates to the guys I work with.
Well, so to stay with, when you started in 2003, there's no chance you thought you'd be sitting in this chair now, right?
No, to be honest, I didn't know. I mean, you and I know that when you get out of the game, and I played a little bit for 13, 14 years in this league, but when you get out of the game, you miss the camaraderie, you miss being in the locker room on a day-to-day basis with the guys. So I think my first year in retirement, we're down in Arizona, and I'm sitting at the computer, probably playing card games or something on the computer. And it was only a month into my retirement. My wife turned to me, she's like, "Okay, what are you doing? Where are we going here?" So I immediately sent my resumes out, and fortunately enough, Mike O'Connell, the following season, hired me to be the Bruins goalie coach. Actually, from Arizona, I actually was bouncing back and forth from there. So, and luckily for me, I've been here ever since.
And didn't Rick Bowness have a hand in that too? Kind of suggestion that you should be a goalie coach. And with that question and with that said, what did you think being a goalie coach was going to be like when you decided to dip your toe into it?
Well, Bones, I have to credit with actually give me the nickname Goalie Bob. I had him as my first pro hockey coach in Moncton. I was a Winnipeg draft my first year in Moncton. He was our head coach, and I love Bones. He was great to me. We had a terrible team, and I probably played the worst season of my life. But he was really good to me, and so when I retired, like I say, down in Arizona, Bones was still coaching in Arizona. So we, my off days, which was every day, I was playing a little bit of golf with him and whatnot, and he was the one that said to me, he said, if you want to stay in the game, which he had the inkling that I did want to do that. You got to get your resume out there, otherwise they'll forget about you. So I sent my resume around to various clubs, and a dozen or so reached back to me and said, thanks, but no thanks. But like I say, the Bruins were in a situation. I actually played with Mike Sullivan a couple of years prior, so I knew Sully. He was a first-year coach here, and it just kind of fell into place then.
How much has your philosophy changed? I'm going to get to like your career and stuff a little later, but we're on this train now, and obviously I know very, very well how much the position's changed in 21 years from when you started, and that to me is probably just as impressive as for you to have the job that long and to be able to have changed that much. There's only a couple of guys that have done it, and I would suggest the other couple of guys haven't been as flexible as you in their thought about the goaltending position. They've had great success, of course, guys like Benny and
Sure.
and that crew.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But how much has it changed, and how often have you changed philosophies over the years?
To be honest, I think everybody that gets to this level, as you know, Razor, and you certainly fall in that category as well. Everybody has something, a strength that allows them to be successful to get here. And my job is to try to accentuate those positives and obviously clean up some of the negatives. How much my philosophy has changed? I mean, I'm still trying to get these guys to stop the puck, which is that'll never change. How they do it, the nice thing for me is the information has been a lot more available. Whether it's USA Hockey or In Goal Magazine, or there's various outlets to find good goal information, and you see it not just at the pro level, but as I'm combing through the draft eligibles for this year coming, they are so much, their technique and whatnot is so much better than the goalies were, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And obviously that's no secret, but their foundation is so much better. So it's more challenging in some respects when you're combing through your 20 or 30 drafts that our scouts seem to like, to try to pinpoint, okay, which one's going to jump off the page, which one's going to be more successful. And it's a little bit of a crapshoot, especially at 18-year-olds to try to figure that out. But the nice thing for me is, and in terms of my developing my own style and whatnot, the technical base for most of these guys is way ahead of the game than it was, like I said, even a few years ago.
So safe to say then, Bob, that you like where goaltending is at, meaning that the game of goaltending, that you're not like me, an old guy yelling at the clouds, and sometimes you don't like what you see here and there. It sounds like you appreciate and respect where the goaltending position is at.
Well, you got to like where the game has gone over the last little while. I mean, when the league starts, taking away goalies, the size of their gear, and not letting them play the puck outside the trapezoid, or coming up with new ideas and ways for them to score goals, then clearly the goalie community is doing something right. And so I'm not sure what's coming down the road here in that regard. It seems like they're always trying to tinker with our equipment, but right now the goals, the goalie stats probably this year are indicative of that there's better offenses. I'm not sure what the actual total is. I'll try to keep track. I try to keep track of the goals against more than the goals for, but it seems to me the goalies' numbers are down this year a little bit. Certainly in our Bruin community, they're not where we would like them, but I think that's kind of the flavor of the league right now.
You don't have a save percentage bonus clause in your contract. Before you answer, it's the entire league, folks. We have a lot of people that just watch Bruins and get very Bruin centric on numbers and compare, but the league average is under 900, folks. So just in reference. So.
And it feels that way. For whatever reason.
The pucks are juiced. It's like baseball. The pucks are juiced now.
Well, we as the coaching staff, we obviously we pour a video after every game, and we're trying to come up with reasons why we're giving up this chance or that chance, and I'm sure we're not alone in that regard. That every team in the league is trying to figure out new and better ways to keep the puck on the net. But there's a lot of good coaches out there, and obviously really cut down the ability to grapple guys in front of the net and hold guys. So the skill of this game just keeps getting better and better.
You were talking about the draft eligible guys, Goalie Bob. I don't think most people would realize how much work you do, not just at the NHL level and not just with the two guys that are in the Bruins roster. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what your title is or what your job description is?
Well, the nice thing about this league is that, for the last few years here, most of the goalie departments have grown. Mm-hmm. We obviously, it's basically Mike Dunham and I in the Bruin organization. Dunny's our development coach, and Dunny will actually, go out and see a bunch of the prospects. Obviously, he works with our guys in Prov on a daily basis as well. So we're way better now than we were, a handful of years ago. In that regard, still, I still think there's room for, and I guess you can say that about every area of the organization. Always looking for rooms to get better and ways to get better. So for me personally, we actually have our amateur scouting meetings coming up here in another week or so, and from those meetings, they'll spit out some goalies. I've already looked at the top 10 draft eligibles, or at least the top 10 that we consider the top 10 draft eligible goalies this year, and I've done my reports on them. But after this meeting, they'll spit out another, list of, probably another 15 guys. So I'll probably have 24 goalies to kind of comb through before the draft ever rolls around. And so when we get, when our playoffs, we get into our playoffs and through our playoffs, hopefully after the the Stanley Cup parade, I'll have to be sitting down and combing through a couple dozen goaltenders that are eligible.
So take us through the process of when you get a new goaltender. We'll use Jonas Korpisalo as an example, because you get a new goaltender middle of the summer, and I'm going to assume you're always tracking, or at least watching, scouting current NHL goaltenders besides the Bruins ones that you have. So when a new one comes into your purview, what is the process for you, Bob? How do you go about it? And then, take us through the steps of what you look at, how you communicate with them, et cetera, to make them part of your teaching style.
Well, in Jonas's case, I've obviously known him for several years. He's been around the league for a while. I actually talked with his former coach in Columbus, Manny Legacy, way back when he was ready to become a free agent. This was several years ago, because I think that was around that time Elvis Merzlikins was coming in, and he was kind of getting pushed out a little bit out of Columbus. So he was on our radar for several years. And the thing I like about his game, it's very similar to Tukes' game, in that he's got a real good solid base, good foundation, his ability to beat the pass. He has length. There's always areas that we're going to try to tackle and try to make him better, but that foundation that we talk about in terms of the technical side of things, and his footwork and his his post work and what have you, they were already there. So when we made the trade this summer, obviously I reach out to him, make sure he's got a good handle on the what our training staff does in terms of physical fitness and whatnot. Try to give him a little bit of get a feel for where he's training, what he's doing in the summer. But we're gonna have plenty of time with him, so we sit down in training camp, and especially this training camp with Sway not being around, you got a little extra work and a little extra game footage going into this season, which is nice.
I'll say there's 70 NHL goalies out there, like good NHL goalies. How many of those do you like? And this kind of goes to that free agent process. Because you've done an unbelievable job in recognizing what works. You've done it right through Govin and yeah. Well, I'm always nice. But you have that's the again. We joke, but you have, and I'm curious how you get to that point and why that's worked. And I think it would be, the way to, with 70 guys, how many of those do you like? No,
how many do I want to be Bruins at some point? Is that what you're asking?
Basically, how many would you take? Or what's your list?
I have a couple dozen that I like. That I really, really like, probably just a handful. Yeah. There's like I said, there's a ton of great goalies, coaches out there. There's a ton of, really solid NHL goaltenders. What I gravitate towards, and this, Razor, as well as anybody, I gravitate towards the guys that can beat the pass. And so when I'm scouting a goalie, especially just to refer back to the speed of the game, it just keeps getting faster and faster. The damn, stick technology keeps getting better and better. Guys can whip pucks. It seemed back in, not to date myself, back in my day in the mid 80s, there's probably 3, 4, 5 guys on each team that could really shoot the puck. Now everybody can. And, you see that on a nightly basis. So, when I look around the league and see the group of goaltenders, for whatever they're doing over in Russia, I got to give kudos to, because you get guys over here that are only 6 foot, 6'1", but play like they're 6'5", and so they're doing something right over there. So kudos to those guys. And for whatever reason, I gravitated towards the Finns. I love their footwork. Excuse me, I love their footwork. And when I was scouting Tukes back in the day before he ever signed, I had the pleasure of going over there and watching and seeing what they do over there. And I love their model. Like, each city has their team. They bring the goalies from the time they're 10 all the way to the junior goalies. They bring them in every week and just do goalie training with their pro coach. So they're all hearing the same voice. And, if there's one area that I think we trail is in that regard. Maybe it's just the way, our cities and our programs are set up, but all their programs are based on a little pyramid scheme. So everybody's trying to gear towards making the national team, and they're all getting the same voice, which I think, at the end of the day is great for the development.
I have you listed for 27 Bruins goalies. Maybe it's 28. It's the 20s that directly for the Bruins. Okay. Like that doesn't include minor leaguers, etc. These are guys that all played at least one game. Okay. We're going to get to a scouting report on one young Andrew Raycroft later. Not yet. Don't worry. Later. It's later. We'll save that for the end. That's what I want. But I'm going to ask you a 3-part question that is, when I say naming names, this is nothing bad here. This is just good stuff that understand the mindset of what it's like working with guys. I want to know who was your, maybe is for all I know, most challenging guy. And I don't mean challenging bad. I mean guy that you really had to work with a ton on footwork, on beating the pass, etc. That's going to be one. The next one is going to be perhaps the easiest guy that you've been able to work with as a Bruin coach. And then also maybe your most rewarding. So we'll start with the most challenging. Who did you really have to work with? And maybe, by the way, your most challenging may end up being your most rewarding guy in the end.
My most challenging. No disrespect.
None.
But Manny Fernandez was an excellent goaltender in this league. And I probably had him in my first Razor, probably first 4 or 5 years as a Bruin coach. And like I say, technically very strong. I loved his game. But he had some mental hurdles that there was a challenge for me to try to help him get through. And I think he experienced it like even before he came here. Like he was in Minnesota, and I think they had, a couple playoff runs there where they ran into some obstacles. But Manny would tell us that if you told him he was playing the next day, he couldn't sleep. So he was a mess. If you told him the day of that he was going to play, you were screwing him. You weren't giving enough time to prepare. So we were at a loss to try to figure out when we're going to tell this guy that he's going to play. Fortunately for us, he played great, but it was always a challenge to, kind of figure out and manage, where he was going to be mentally. And I didn't have a whole lot of, great answers for him in that regard. So he was a challenge. Quite honestly, Linus, who was here, and had a lot of success and whatnot, he challenged me because he would give me pushback on things that he'd been doing, forever, that I figured would really help his game. And like I say, for the first month or two, he gave me pushback almost, not daily, but weekly for sure, that he didn't see it. He didn't see it. Finally, he started to incorporate, and all we were talking about was just getting him out of mud, getting him a little recoil. That's all I wanted him to do was, get himself out of mud so he didn't have to extend and pull groins or pop hamstrings. And that's all I wanted, was a little bit of recoil. And I knew it was going to help his game, and it did. Sometimes you gotta, you just gotta keep pounding on these guys. Razor was easy. He was always in position. Yeah, I'm not sure he listened to me or not, but he was always in position. So
was he one of the easiest? Was he one of the easier guys? You've had a hell of a great stable of goalies come through here. So but who was there anybody that was just real smooth and easy to work with?
Oh, Razor was easy. I mean, it was his rookie year, so he was obviously very excited. And he didn't know me from a hole in the wall. So
I knew Goalie Bob. That's right. Six style in Winnipeg all the time.
Yeah, right. 6 style. But his base was in his ability to read the game and put himself in a perfect position. I mean, he made, and not to blow smoke up your butt, Razor, but you were one of the guys that always put yourself in a great position, read the game really well, and that I I had nothing to do with that, honestly. That would just be letting you be you.
It was cheesy.
It was cheesy for sure. But we've had some good ones here. I mean, and I got to give kudos to management, whether it's Sweens or Mike O'Connell or Pete. Over the years, they put me in a great position because they've given me some great goaltenders to work with, whether it's Razor or Timmy or Tukes or Linus or now Sway. That's a nice grouping of goaltenders, and there isn't a lot that we have to change in their game. There's always things we can tweak here and there, but and we've had coaches that have a real defensive mind, whether it was Claude or Sully or Butchie. I mean, they all have and even Monty, what have you. They all have a real defensive mindset. So that that makes my job so much easier too.
Well, we just talked about some challenges, but what's the hardest part of your job that people wouldn't think about?
It depends on Razor. Honestly, like year to year, the last few years, it's the hardest part has been trying to manage games because I've had two goalies that have both been playing really well and want the net and deserve the net, and just trying to manage our way through the regular season. We ended up, last year. I mean, we were flip-flopping all the way to the playoffs. So then, what do you do come playoff time? So those are the challenges because I'm still of the belief that and we did it. We did it back when I played in Winnipeg. We flip-flopped through round one of the playoffs, and I'm not sure I'm a believer in it. If it works, great, but it's more a rarity than anything else. I think you have to, if you get a goalie that gets in there and gets in a goal in a team's head, you got to stick with them. And to me, that's a challenge sometimes, especially with what went on here in the last years.
You have a ton of goalies, 27 or 28. You've had 7 coaches. Is that right? 6, 7 coaches. Sullivan, Lewis, Claude, Butch, Monty, Sacco. Am I forgetting anybody? Got it right?
No, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
You mentioned that coaches that teach the defensive style, but do they ever come to you? Have any of those guys come to you as they're putting together their system and say, hey, take us into that crazy, 4x6 area back there and tell me what you're seeing or thinking to help tweak the system a little bit?
Who blamed you? Who
blamed you? Well, blame's different.
I probably blame the systems under my breath sometimes, more than they. But I'm not. Honestly, they're not afraid to blame the goalies. I mean, that's just head coaching, and I've made that walk from the press box down to our dressing room between periods, and I can almost predict what the coach is going to say, like in terms of the goalie. Like, is that a good goal? Or like, no, probably not. But that comes with the territory, and I've been lucky enough that I think all the coaches that I've been lucky enough to work with, there's 3 or 4 Jack Adams winners in there. All those guys have been very respectful to me. I'm not sure that's always the case around the league, but other goalie coaches have told me that's not always the case. But they've been very respectful to me, and I can't thank them enough for that.
Have they ever looked for input on a system? Meaning, like, tell us what you guys are seeing from back there, because it's so different. It's one of you, and it's or 2 if you with the backup, and it's 18 skaters now, so it's a whole different perspective.
Honestly, Billy, I don't think our system has changed a ton over the last little while. Ever since Claude was here, and then Butchie kind of filtered in a lot of the things that we did with Claude for a decade, and no different with Monty. Monty's kind of picked up on where we were. I think it was probably our same D zone coverage and what have you, way back from Claude. That obviously we tweaked it here and there, and we tweaked it again this year. But for the most part, our structure in our own zone hasn't changed a whole lot. We haven't been a man-on-man team. We rely on our layers, and it's given us success over the X amount of years. So there was really no reason to change it. So when you talk about me adding something to it, not really. I mean, most of the head coaches that I've had the pleasure to work with, they're pretty set in what they want to have happen in the D zone, and I'm not sure me saying something different is going to change their mind.
That's how you stick around. That
right.
That's right. Yeah, sounds good, Coach.
Everything's working perfect. What's the common thread between your best goalies beyond the technical things?
Well,
or is there one?
There was.
Are they? Yeah, because I mean, there are different people, that have.
For sure,
that's certainly the case.
They're definitely different people. Yeah, and I think Ian Clark came out with one of his presentations there. This was a handful of years ago, where he listed off the 7 attributes of every successful NHL goaltender. And honestly, in that list, I have to agree with him for the most part. And I'm really testing myself to figure out what the 7 things are. But, they have to be athletic. I mean, the old adage holds true that I can make an athlete a better goalie, not necessarily the other way around. They have to be athletic. They have to have, a certain level of visual acuity, so to speak. Like they have, and I talk about, hard focus and soft focus. Everyone has the hard focus, the puck, but the guys with the really good soft focus that can feel the play around them are the ones that are going to have success in this league. There's a mental side of things, when we talk about Manny and what have you, but the guys that have a certain level of, where they can just forget about a bad goal and push things off the side and have that swagger in their game. That's not always ingrained in everybody. So that's one thing that we, obviously look for in goaltenders. The technique side of things, we can always improve that. Competitiveness, everybody has to be competitive. And, the guys that, show up for practice every day, Timmy's probably the best example. Like Timmy hated to get scored on. And he loved, and our fourth liners, like probably Thorny was the best at it, would love giving him the gears whenever he scored in practice, because it irked him so bad. But the guys who really compete in practice and love to, love to go on the ice and have that competitive aspect in practice and little mini games and what have you, those are the guys that, obviously have longevity in this league.
So let's touch on your career a little bit. Ron Mason once told me, sitting in his office in East Lansing, he says, for a Wolverine, you're not half bad. And that was clean because Ron had a way about him. He said, you're okay. Like he'll talk to me. I was doing games and I fell into broadcasting the college hockey game of the week and CCHA game. And we did Michigan State an awful lot. You're an Ontario kid. You end up at State. What did playing 4 years at Michigan State do for you? And why did you choose that?
4 terrific years. I actually was drafted in the OHL to Cornwall. I grew up in Toronto, drafted to Cornwall. Cornwall didn't really wasn't the most attractive of Ontario League cities at the time, so
it
kind of helped my
smells. It's a paper mill. It smells like legitimately.
Exactly. So that kind of helped my decision to go the college route. Sean Walsh was actually the guy that recruited me to Michigan State, and Sean was a terrific recruiter, just a terrific guy. He actually recruited me to State. Actually, it was myself and Norm Foster that played 4 years together.
Yeah.
Normie was the Friday night goaltender. I was the Saturday, and it worked out great for both of us. We both turned pro, and those friendships I still have. I still go back to East Lansing, play golf with all my guys in our class or in that era.
Those were some heavy duty teams, by the way. You guys had some. I mean, that was prime time for Michigan State. The Sparties were good then, really. And they are now too.
I'm so happy to see them get back to where I think they belong. But we did have some good teams. Not to blow my own horn, but I think 3 of the 4 years we made to the Final Four, and the only year we did make it was actually the year we had our best team. I think we'd won 22 games in a row or something that year. So we had some good teams, and but again, those 4 years you can't replace those. Those are the fun years.
And then you play a long time, successfully, great career. What from that career and even to the Michigan State days, have you dropped from what you're doing now and what you've carried through?
Well, my game is nothing like what I teach now, obviously, or try to teach now. I joke about I played for half a dozen teams over, like, say, 13, 14 years. Everybody wanted me and nobody wanted me. I shelf life about a year or so. And he got tired of me. But I made a lot of great friendships. And I think the one thing that I had in my favor is that I like to try to, at least I convinced myself I was a good team guy, that I was the type of guy that would, stay out after practice and do extra and be a good guy in the locker room. And like I say, when you get out of the game, that's the first thing you miss. So when I was sitting around at home in Arizona doing nothing, I was like, I can't do this. So I've been really fortunate to have that ability to do that for a long time here, and it sustains me.
Talk about getting the opportunity to work with younger players, and not that you're old, just saying you're not old, but
no, I turn 60 tomorrow.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Nice.
Outstanding. The challenges of not just teaching what the younger goaltenders want, but when you're talking like a 20-something, like a Jeremy Swayman, again, using a current young netminder in the National Hockey League, and there's a lot of young guys out there, talk about the challenges about getting through to them and understanding how they learn, because they learn differently than you and I and Razor ever did, right? And
Right.
Understand it. And so how have you been able to deal with that?
Well, I mean, the one thing about this game, the longer you hang around with, the 20-some-year-olds, it keeps you youthful. It does that. Actually, one of the kids that played on one of my son's team actually just reached out to me yesterday, because he's playing for UNLV. He's going into coaching, and he's like, "Give me some coaching advice," because he wants to be according to him, he wants to be the youngest Jack Adams Award winner. So
I like that.
And actually, it was. I mean, Razor, you coach kids, Billy, you coach kids. Like, this kid was probably the least. If I were to rank them in terms of who was going to be a coach, he'd be way at the bottom. Like, there's no way this guy was going to be a coach. But I love that he's matured and what have you. So the piece of advice I gave to him, and I think it holds true, regardless of, and it's ageless. I think that players don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I think that holds true. And if you care about your guys and you show that you care about your guys, then they'll give you the time of day that you hopefully you think you deserve.
Now you took my finish, because that's where I was going to go at the end, Bob, because of course I had Cheesy, and then I had you, and then I went a bunch of different places. And there's no doubt that's, for me, like I look at you the last 21 years, and that's the common denominator, is that the other guys, the guys I didn't like, didn't care, or they thought they cared, but they really.
Who are those guys?
Yeah, well, I'll happily. You know a few of them, and you know well that I can easily get away with saying their names, and it won't matter. But anyway, yeah, we'll leave that for another time. It wasn't Clarkie. Clarkie's right up there. But to that though, because there's also. And we touched on a little bit with the challenges, but there's also, as great of a guy and nicest guy, you also have to put the hammer down sometimes too, right? And you have to do it with certain kind of structure or a certain type of way with each different guy. But you had to do it with Tuukka. You have to do it with Timmy at certain times. How natural is that for you?
It's not natural, Razor. I'm not one of those hard guys. Hopefully I can get through to them, without being, a jackass to these guys, and sometimes they need that. And I was always of the belief, and back when Pete Shirley was the GM, I think it was after one of Tukes' first couple of years, he asked me, he said, "Can you be harder on him?" And I said, "Yeah, I can. It's not really my way, but I can." I always thought that's kind of a head coaching thing. Like if you're, and not to throw those guys under the bus, but I think if you want somebody to lean on somebody, probably should be coming from your head guy. I think the assistant coaches are more the good cop, so to speak, than the bad. But these guys know. I mean, and I think we all know this at this point. Like, these guys know when they're playing well and when they need extra work and when they don't. And that it's not as imperative as probably has been in the past. I mean, I haven't had the guys that just don't want to work. And fortunately for me, that's been the case. But I've had guys that will work through tough spells. And if you don't have that, then, those guys they don't stick around long.
Couple of more questions before we wrap up this fun episode. You are a goaltending expert, as is Razor. Okay. And I trust him implicitly. I got a multi-part question, but I'm going to start with this one. Do you have any idea what goalie interference is? Like, and do you like the rule? Because sure as heck, I don't always know what it is going to be. So do you have a good feel when those plays are challenged?
I have a better feel than I had maybe a week ago, a year ago, a month ago. I quite honestly, when we look at a goal, obviously a goal against it, we're thinking about challenging. I don't know. To me, sometimes it's a coin flip what the league's looking at. And, no disrespect, it's probably a very difficult call. In some respects, I'd rather go back to the good old days where, the ref makes the call on the ice and it stands. I know that it's a better system now than that, but quite honestly, there's been a handful of calls that we've tried to make that I said, this is guaranteed coming back, and it ends up in the scoreboard. I've seen a couple at the other end that they challenged that I'm like, okay, this is coming back, and it ends on the scoreboard. So I wish I could say that I know exactly what's going to be called and what it isn't, but I know, like, if my goalie's in his crease and he gets bumped by a guy that doesn't get shoved in there, it probably should come back. But
I don't want goalies to get run. I'm being serious. I don't want goalies to get run. I'm being totally, but you played in an era, Razor, you kind of played in an era too, where there was a lot more contact and you guys handled it, and your equipment was literally like a kid's pillow. You know what I mean? I mean, compared to what these guys are wearing, like the Michelin Met right now. So should the game go back to that in the sense of it, or is it just too valuable, fellas? And unless Razor, I'll throw it out to you too. Is it just too valuable of a position that it can't? Because it seems to almost create more issues than clarity at times, the ruling.
You taking that, Razor?
I'll go. I was gonna let the real. No, listen. You can't have the running of the goaltenders, but when it talks to the actual goals and the goalie interference, and I'm sure you've talked to the league too. I've talked to Witter and tried to get an idea because I have to talk about it. I want the referees on the ice to make a call. And unless there's an absolute crazy miss that they just didn't see, I'm fine with that staying. And I know that's where the league's trying to get to is right, to make the referees make that decision. And unless something's completely egregious, my only pushback, and I think this is all goalie pushback. We don't care. We're not worried about keeping goals off the board. It's the last thing we actually want to do. But we also want just a little bit of understanding that if a guy's taking a slapper on you from 15, 20 feet away, that's going to go 90 miles an hour. Don't tell me that a guy nudging me only an inch doesn't affect my ability to stop the puck with no one around. Right. And that's where, as goalies, I think we get annoyed with, is that somebody's telling me that, no, that guy just barely touched you. That doesn't affect your shot ability to make the save. That's what's crazy to us as players is that, right, no, that's a big deal, and good luck trying to make that save without getting nudged.
Right. And I mean, quite honestly, it's sometimes just a coin flip. Like we played 2 nights ago in Tampa. The guy goes down a breakaway, swings through the crease, takes Sway out a little bit. He has a split second to adjust. His head turns around, and the next shot's coming. So how do you determine what's enough time for him to reset? And to me, I don't know what the answer is to that, because
sometimes we create more problems with trying to get to it.
We do. We do.
Yeah,
So,
we didn't spend much time on that, but I had that same thought the other night. Of course, it's just the way the game was, it didn't lend to that, but
right.
there was that can be more interference than somebody running through you, at the same time. Like some of the other calls, right? Like that could have gone the other way if the right people are in the room, and you don't know that either, right?
And not that Sway would ever do it, but if Sway to embellish that guy going through his crease and not allow himself to get back in time, only because his technique was decent, he gets himself back in time. If it wasn't, maybe we get a different result. But trust me, he and I, and actually he and Jonas and myself, every time after a game, we'll sit down, and any of those potential goalie interference calls that we don't call, sometimes I have to sit there and explain why to him why we didn't call that. But I want them, like when they know they're interfered with, I want them to to embellish, but show it, so we know to quickly jump on it. The
Bobrovsky stick drop.
Yeah,
right. Every once in a while, I'll challenge what I consider very good friend Razor with what the hell about this reverse VH thing from the side and the puck goes short side, and he rolls his eyes like he's doing right now and everything. All right. So we'll kind of get very close. The last comment or question I have is I want a full scouting report on a 21-year-old Raycroft the end of this show with when you took him over back in 03. But we don't need to get technical for the reverse VH. Okay. I understand it's, we're on YouTube, but on the other hand, I would need you really to deep dive it along with Razor with video. We're not going to do that. But not every once in a while, more and more, we're seeing these unbelievable shooters that can tuck it in the corner and everything. And I always say, just stay on your feet. And Razor loves yelling at me. Sure. Then it would go in on the feet, kind of probably when you were playing, Bob, in that era, right? Where are you at with this whole reverse VH and the usage of it by some goalies?
I like our goalies to have the full use of every post seal, whether it's a VH, RVH, overlap, shin lock, toe lock, whatever. I want to be able to do them all, and with equal confidence. And so I don't want them to become predictable. And unfortunately for us, in some regards, when I talk about these guys that are really good technically, the RVH is the flavor of the last half decade. So everybody will drop into an RVH, toe lock, ridge lock, whatever you want to call it. So you're going to force a guy. There's going to be room up there, in and around your ear, and you see the guys make those types of shots, periodically. I'd much rather force a guy to make that shot than have a guy standing on his post and fire one, then it goes between his feet and in the net. That's what I used to do. I used to stand on the post, and that never worked. So
VH was even worse. That's the thing. Oh,
and the VH. Quite honestly, I'm trying. I want our guys to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to necessarily implement it. There's always going to be times where you have to. And it's more
Big Cat uses it every once in a while, right?
Pardon me?
The Big Cat uses it every once in a while.
He does. Certainly more glove side than not. But to be unpredictable is a good thing, but I see more and more goalies going to the overlap where especially the guys that can move, and they can all move to a certain extent these days, clearly. But the guys that'll actually play it normally outside the post and still, like you say, Billy, now they're not necessarily giving up. They're not sitting there waiting for it to go off off the side they're masking in. That maybe be the solution to your RVH issue.
I don't know. I just like getting into it with Razor. He rarely gets upset, but then when he does, he gets like he just, oh God, you stupid shooters, You
just got to tip your hat to the skills coach.
That's right. Everyone needs a job.
Exactly.
My last one. Who is your most fun as a goaltender? What guy, what character, what person just stood out differently than the others over the last
goalie wise? We're saying the goalie community, are we?
Yeah, well, no, you don't have to. If there's one player that just was the guy who shot every day before practice, we'll go with that guy. What was your closest guy?
That's a good question. Like I said, I think I have a pretty decent relationship with most of the guys that come through here. and they were all, terrific guys, terrific goaltenders. I don't know. That's tough. That's a tough one. I mean, Dobie was fun. Yarrow had fun. But, certainly, again, I've been lucky in that regard. I'm not sure I would call anyone the funnest, but I've always had a good group of guys, so I've been fortunate.
So take us back then to a fun guy. I think he's gotten more fun as he's gotten older. It's 2003. Young Razor.
Mm-hmm.
Was he Razor? He had to be Razor then.
He had to.
Yeah, he had to have been, right? Juniors when you got that name, right,
Yeah,
Razor?
at least, yeah.
Okay.
Long time.
So you're brand spanking new in this coaching thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you take us back to that time, getting on the ice with them, coaching them early on, and a scouting report and your what you worked on? Can you remember what you worked on with them the most?
Well, it was interesting because Felix Potman was Razor's backup, and I played with Felix 2 or 3 years prior, so I knew Felix well, obviously. So that was probably a more challenging relationship, just because we've been goalie partners, and now I'm running drills that I know he probably doesn't like.
He didn't like those. And you had to tell him he wasn't playing, which was even worse.
Yeah, exactly. No, Felix, you're out tonight, but sorry. But Razor, I mean, like I say, he's a rookie, so you're gonna get a guy that hopefully open to anything you throw his way. But and again, not to blow smoke, but his foundation was so good that we didn't have to tinker with a whole lot. And we threw a ton of games his way, and obviously we had a terrific season. So if there was anything, just from and again, this is back in the days when I was only out there, I'd come up for a week and go home for a week. So in some ways I liked it because it kind of kept the relationship fresh. Where when I'd come in, they knew maybe it was going to be a work week, and then the next.
That's what I tell my wife. We go off.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So not dissimilar then. But it does keep I thought it always kept the relationship fresh. I mean, at some point, in this day and age, with the goalie departments getting bigger and bigger on a daily basis, that you need a full-time guy, especially in this business. But back then, not so much. And Razor, to his credit, he was as good when I was kicking around and when I was back home playing golf with Bones in Arizona.
Well, I can tell by your guys how you work together, how you talk together. Relationship is still great. So obviously you did something right back in 2003, and 21 going on 22 years later, you're still doing it right. You're still getting the respect of the guys, and it's a lot of fun. There's so many other questions that I would love to ask. So perhaps we can have another time. But this has been long enough for you, I know, in the sense of
you're doing it again next
week. Yeah. Continued success. Happy birthday. Enjoy the young 6-0. And remember, it's just a number. I'm right behind you, just a couple of years. I can't believe it. And you know what?
Try to catch me.
I will. And to borrow a phrase from Ron Mason, for a Sparty, you're not half bad. From a Wolverine to a Sparty. Thanks for your time. We appreciate you joining us here on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. It's been a lot of fun. And folks, I hope you enjoyed this. And everybody will be catching up with the next episode in just another day or so. So make sure to check us out again. Check this one out with Goalie Bob from the Boston Bruins.